Welcome to the Loud Quiet. Ooh, empty nester. Okay. What does that mean?
Yeah, I think that actually probably is the theme of the empty nest. What are we doing? Let's do this. Let's do this thing. I don't know if I'm recording. Yeah. Okay.
Great. Sans children. Just us. We need a tissue box up here. Follow along on our journey and maybe, we can learn from others.
Yeah. I don't have a clue how to be empty nester.
This is the Loud Quiet Living the Empty Nest. Hello, welcome back to the Loud Quiet, episode 22. It is bitterly cold here today.
We have a higher episode number than the temperature.
Yeah, the temperature is lower than our episode number. We braved it, went to church, but man, it's cold. Made me realize I'm very happy to not have to be standing outside at soccer games anymore.
Boy, that is the absolute truth. And it is our soccer family that has told us what the nice temperature is out there. Didn't we hear a 70 degree or something being told to us? It may not have been that warm.
Later this week, it is getting back up to like 75 out there. So yes, but yes, welcome back. We have a fun one to do today. So
yeah, this is inspired by just kind of a random event at work. I'm in an office by myself, and I listen to music all the time. And for some reason, out of the middle of nowhere, a band from the 90s, it was actually a Christian rock band called Dakota Motor Company, came to mind. And I started playing it, and I was listening to every little one of the, I knew all the songs, could hum along with the words. And it just made me think, and we got to talking about the music that we listened to that was impactful to kind of our early dating days, our married life. And as we're in this empty nest phase, it's kind of fun to remember those things. And even when we listen to those albums now, they're meaningful to us now. It reminds us of that period, which I think is so important to making this a success, as we've now returned to just the two of us.
Mm-hmm. It is interesting you brought up, I don't know that band that you brought up, but you sent me that Spotify list that was 90s Christian youth group.
It was youth camp.
Youth camp.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was youth camp playlist.
And I knew almost all of them. Some of them were a little later 90s. But I knew a lot of them. But
I may have to go back and listen to that playlist, and I love the description. The description is perfect, that it is a youth camp.
We don't have any Christian albums on our...
That wasn't part of our dating life.
No. So
there's a side story that we're not going to get into about Jars of Clay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes us sound that wasn't part of our dating life.
Oh
we threw Jesus out the window during our dating life. That's what that sounded like.
We listened to gospel music on the way to church every Sunday morning.
Yes, we did.
105. I can't remember what the radio station was. So let's go through this run.
Yeah.
So this is going to be all about the albums, bands that were meaningful to us when we were dating.
Yeah. So this one you actually introduced me to.
Yeah.
Even though I was from there. I mean, I was.
So this one, for those that are on audio,
this
is Jacko Pierce.
Yeah.
And this is I forget which. This is the first album.
The Vineyard.
No, this is the first album.
It?
This is in Vineyard. So this is the very first album that. Yeah.
This one is just what I always visualize because this was when we had CDs. So you had the cover art on your CD. So.
That's right.
But yes, you introduced this band to me, like I was saying. Even though I was finishing school in Dallas, and that was their.
They were an SMU
band, yeah.
They were obviously bigger than that by then. That's where they started, was playing frat parties at SMU.
Yeah.
So yeah, Jacko Pierce. My first seeing of them was when I came into town. I don't know if it was over Christmas or summer. It doesn't matter. But I was visiting friends at Baylor and saw them at I couldn't even tell you the club that we saw them there in Baylor, and just fell in love with two guys and a guitar. They later added a full band. Two guys and a guitar, and yeah, people at school actually called me Rico Pierce because of my obsession with them at times. But we brought this into us. We saw them. I couldn't tell you how many times there down in Deep Element Trees, and
then we went back after because we had kids already, and then we were like, oh, they're playing again
At House of Blues.
Yeah.
That's right. They had broken up and then had finally come back together after maybe a decade. Couldn't tell you.
and it wasn't the same.
No.
Yeah.
Sometimes let's just keep the CD
Yeah.
going. I think even didn't we go see? We may have seen either Jack or Carrie at a solo gig at the
He had
Thin Room.
one of them had that American
Horse?
horse or something. I don't know. Yeah,
All right, well-
we did. We saw. Yes, we saw. Yeah, but that concert I think solidified my days of knowing that. Yeah, I can't go to a club and stand for, and the show didn't start till probably much later. Yeah, I can't do that kind of stuff. But
And this was. I have these visions of us listening, certainly in the car and that sort of stuff, but we did a lot of listening to just music in the apartment while we were just hanging out in the evenings. And this being two guys and two guitars and playing songs, it is funny if you go back and listen. I was just listening to this album the other day. Drugs mean war, they don't mean peace anymore. And it's kind of funny listening to them. There's a little bit of I don't know if they would say that some of their music aged well and some of the things that they may have done later in life. They do have a phenomenal version of Please Come to Boston.
yes, that's one of my favorites that they do. And yeah, and we would listen to this, you know, I can even visualize when we were traveling, having it, you know, I guess we took the CD with us.
Oh, yeah. Do you not remember the big folder of CDs?
Well, right, but I don't know. I mean, I guess when we were road tripping and things like that.
You would do that, or you'd have your Discman or whatever it was. And I don't think I ever had the 5-disc changer, but it was I had to have that big folder of CDs for the road trip.
Yeah,
Oh,
you did
what a
in the
beating.
apartment. I remember we
Oh, in the apartment,
Yeah,
sure. My stereo with the big speakers.
So
Jack Pierce.
Yeah, that was a good one, and along with Jack Pierce, kind of in the same era of our dating life was, and I think were they connected in some way?
They operate in the same circles.
Okay,
I think just as band people, sometimes they tour together. They knew each other, but
Yeah,
Vertical
this
Horizon.
is Vertical Horizon, yes, and this was their. I don't know if this was their last album, but this was the newer one.
This was the hit.
When they
this
tried,
popular.
Yeah, they made it to the radio.
Yes.
But I liked their other stuff better. When it again was the two guitars and two guys.
Yeah.
You know,
Was it Club Dada? Is that where we saw
I think
them?
so. Yeah, where it was the
Check, checkity,
the
check.
the mic check that lasted for
Yeah, it was a good 5-10
forever.
minutes.
Oh, yeah. It was long.
It was a great show, though. Vertical
Yeah.
Horizon certainly put on a good show, and I think that you're right that they did have members that went back and forth between them.
And you know, because we saw all of these last two bands, you know, in Deep Ellum. We've talked about how live music was a big part of our dating. You know, I don't know. Do they still do much of that down there, or is it? You know, we just haven't been in that scene.
Believe so. Just listening to like Danny Bayless, formerly of the Ticket. Now he's on whatever the new 97 one is. But Danny Bayless has a club, and they talk about the Dallas bands and the local bands. The problem is they don't go on till 11:30.
And I just know when Tanner comes into town and they go to Deep Ellum, it's all EDM music. You know, I just haven't.
There's other clubs.
I haven't heard
This
a
one, I
lot
feel.
of this kind of, even in his out at ASU, it's all seems to be more of the
Right.
or the big festivals and that kind of thing. So I don't know. I was just
Don't know.
curious. Yeah.
Rock is still there. It's just not
Yeah.
quite the same that it once was.
Yeah. So
Jack Pierce, Vertical Horizon. What's
yes. What's next?
next? This is decidedly not Jack Pierce. I talked over you. This is
ABBA. Yes. So, I mean,
well. You were telling me your memory of on our first.
oh yeah. That
first
was
non-date.
Yeah, I was gonna say it wasn't a date, but it's when you lived in that apartment, horrible apartment
in the village.
in the village. But yes, in the not so nice village apartment.
Yeah,
but,
the rest of the village was nice. I just happened to live in the one that was not so nice. Had a car broken into, not mine. It was a rental car. Yes.
but I remember our first. I guess we had just been
We were just
out,
hanging out,
yeah. And then you were like, "Oh, come back and we'll watch the ABBA."
VHS.
Yes,
The greatest hits VHS.
So,
I think we still have it in the house somewhere. Not that we have the ability to play
I
it.
don't know. I don't know. But who doesn't? I mean, I'm sure someone doesn't love ABBA, but who doesn't love ABBA? I mean, it's just feel good, poppy, fun music, that you can sing along to anytime.
70s disco to the extreme.
Yeah, I at your sister's wedding, it was played, and your dad was a huge ABBA fan, and so
that's what I remember is the cassettes in the car. It just became a part of us, even to the point of, yes, celebrating this music. The greatest hits would be playing on the CD when we were dating. And when recently we went and saw that, I guess, string quartet doing a candlelight ABBA
yes,
concert,
very
which
good.
was a lot of fun. And of course, and they even said, okay, everybody, we know you're here to hear this. Don't sing along, except we'll have this one time that you can sing along.
And the kids that were, because they were kids that were in the string quartet, some of them said, I didn't know who this band was.
Thanks, kid.
But then when they realized they were associated with Mamma Mia, then they knew who they were, because that's made
they knew the music,
that group more in the movie. And
yes.
So, but yeah, and so many. I mean, we just recently Saturday Night Live just did a parody of them doing a Christmas album, and it's really funny.
And what was funny about it is if you can visualize the 70s style of live concert where they'd take two cameras and they'd merge the cameras together so it looked like the people's faces were right next to each other. And so SNL just had the people singing with faces next to each other.
And especially with ABBA, because that was such a thing for them, was all,
Well, that was technologically
because they
incredible.
were two couples that sang together. And so that was...
Until they weren't two couples.
Yes.
This will not be a podcast episode about ABBA.
Deep dive into ABBA.
I guarantee it's out there.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, yeah. I think we've watched a documentary or two about them.
A weekly podcast about ABBA.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there probably is. So...
So that's ABBA, and a lot of fun, and that just the spice of
and it is again just fun, feel good music.
Yep.
All right, next, 80s new wave.
We decided
this one we just did a genre of because there's just too many.
I was thinking through this because the first. I don't even remember the first one they said. Now that we say that, but you think about New Order, you think about Depeche Mode, you think about Erasure, The Cure. And some of these are concerts that we've actually even seen. This is music that is on almost just constantly when we're listening to music. As we were driving home from church, it was First Wave on Sirius XM. And these were on strong play for us when we were dating. And then, like I said, when we went to go concerts too, right? Choosing to go see these bands. And there's something about music that is cemented in your brain when you're in that high school era, that becomes your music going forward. And I think that because it is that cemented and tattooed in our brains together, music is a connectivity. It's a glue for us. It's something that we can enjoy. We can talk about. We can sing together or hum or...
And this is probably my favorite genre of music out there. And yes, I can turn on any band's playlist in this area and just love it. And our kids have heard it too, and their friends are like, "How do you know these songs?" Because we were big, even in our dating and into our being parents. We don't keep the TV on as much as I have said I love TV, but we don't keep it on while I'm making dinner. We don't keep it on while we're eating dinner. It's always music. That's what's always playing at some point.
What would you? Yeah, and I think it has been funny to hear the kids talk about. Well, they'll say either we played it or there's a TikTok that had that.
Yeah, right. Yes,
they picked up on some of our songs through TikTok.
Tegan was singing some song the other day. I said, how do you know that song? Oh, it's a meme. Oh, it's a reel. Oh, it's yeah.
So if you were thinking, we talked about some of those new wave bands. There's a whole kind of genre or spectrum from sort of kind of the darker side of new wave to the really I'd even put things like Depeche Mode in that darker, and Erasure getting lighter, and then even like, all the way into Howard Jones and ABC
Culture
where it's
Club,
super light.
Yes.
Where would you put yourself? Like your favorite?
That's really hard because I like them all.
Yeah.
There are times that I want Depeche Mode.
That's right.
As we call depressed mode sometimes. But then there's times that I want Erasure and Culture Club and that. And, it's hard for me. I mean, Erasure is obviously my favorite. New Order is close second. But yeah, I don't think I could pick.
It's hard.
I think it depends on my mood, and it depends on, and there are certainly ones that when they come up, I'm like, pass, because you hear them so many times. I like some of the more obscure things that I don't need to hear the, Erasure song that was played 50 million times. I know every album they have.
Right.
I know the songs that I like. And so, yeah, I don't think I could pinpoint into.
I think you're right though I like what you said about I pass by the songs that we've heard so many times. Sometimes I feel that way about The Cure, like we mentioned The Cure, but it was those discs were on heavy repeat for me as a high schooler, and then early dating and just dating in general. There are times I'm like, okay, yes, I've heard the Caterpillar song enough. I don't need to hear it. So getting past it.
Yeah.
I like how you said that. It is very mood dependent, because it will be the poppy side of it, or I really want to have the dark synth of Depeche Mode, or the I guess moody guitars of the Smiths. That might be like.
And it'll be interesting because in our generation, this stuff was on the radio. We didn't have options to make other playlists or go find other music. There
outside of scouring a record
right,
store, you had to go do it.
Yeah, you had your, station that played this kind of music. You had your rock station, but they kind of bled together. Then, so it's probably just really mainstream and country. There weren't a lot of. If you lived in a place that had a university radio, then you had access to that. So there you got some of the different things. But our kids, they have access to so much.
Anything they're in the mood for.
And, I can get in the car, and if one of these songs comes on, I know every single word. I don't know if unless they've plugged into, like obviously Tanner and Tegan too, they know every Tyler, the Creator.
Right.
But they have so much access to so much different kind of music that it'll be interesting to see what they pull out.
What they carry forward. What is their...
going to be...
It's cemented in their brain high school version of music that they carry forward.
And I don't know as much of it as high school as it would be when they were younger and we still had to play music the way that we played music. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of that difference. So I mean, we could do a whole podcast on 80s new wave because
we're not going to.
I know, but that is my, like I said, my favorite genre. All right, here we go.
Boy, you want to talk about something that is a connective tissue, but I even said to you, I don't want this to be first. Air supply.
Do you want to turn in your man card?
My man card is the fact that this is even allowed is the man card's done. Although my dad was so into this, so it was a male influence that brought it in. But yes, Air Supply.
Mm-hmm. And this, I mean, we listened to this album a lot.
The beating of my heart is a drum, and it's lost, and it's looking for a rhythm like you.
I still remember when we were like, wait, what did he say? And that was before, I don't think we could Google it. I think we pulled out, I think we pulled, because they had the words printed in the CD, and I've been singing that song. I mean, it's been on the radio, again, from the 80s. I had no idea that's what he said. And so when I looked it up, I was like, oh, okay.
That has been
That is some excellent writing.
an ongoing joke for us to laugh about the lyrics there, which again, kind of connective tissue, right? This is the laughs that come from that. And yes, okay, probably since I'm 50, I can admit this. Okay, the songs are good. It's hard to admit that, but it is so sweet and romantic, and the soaring. You can just see the arena going not
and you can
crazy.
hear the drum rolls coming in on like "Sweet Dreams." That song.
Wouldn't that be interesting to have experienced the concert when they were at their peak?
I know.
Now it wouldn't be the same.
I'm still sad that I've never seen them live. You know, and
They're at Windstar all the time.
I know. Well, not all the time. Every weekend they've come, we're gone.
Yeah.
I wanted to go. They're coming in February. We're in Arizona, so no, I want to see them before one of them dies because they're way older than us. So
is that the title of the episode? I want to see them before somebody dies.
So
yeah, and it's one that you would slow dance to.
Well, yeah. Yeah, and I'm trying to remember. I guess they played it at 8th grade dance, probably.
Ooh, I don't know. I bet it was uncool enough at that point. I think it needed to come back.
I don't think any kids were making the playlist at the 8th grade dance. I would imagine it was the teachers, but I don't know. But this one to me is sitting in the apartment on Saxony, or the Saxony apartment, and
Montfort Drive.
and listening to this in the 6 CD.
Oh, I only could have 5.
Oh, you had 5? Sorry, I didn't remember how many you had. So,
and that was probably a time that I had the Christmas lights hung around the ceiling.
And the shelves that are in our garage now that were the shelves that had the TV and the stereo.
Not only am I frugal, I'm just helping us have memories and connected back to those days of sitting on a couch together and cuddling up, listening to Air Supply.
Mm-hmm. So I think I stuck with this genre. Yes, I did. So
trying to introduce a little sensuality combined with an intellectualism of classical. This is, for those that are not familiar, this is Sensual Classics, over 75 minutes of musical passion.
Oh, okay.
This was volume 1.
Yes, we had both.
I had volume 1, or we had volume 1 and volume 2.
Yes, we did. Yeah, that was a we, because I think we purchased those together.
It was. I just stumbled on my words.
Yeah.
Sure. There are playlists out there for bedroom songs and beats between the sheets and all that kind of stuff for nookie music. I don't know that Sensual Classics ever really made it to that category because it is I mean, now the pieces are beautiful. It's all classical. I couldn't tell you which ones.
We loved these albums. Yeah. Now, the first one, I think we really liked the first one. The second one, I think we were a little ho-hum on.
They're beautiful pieces. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just, in spite of the bodice-ripping romance novel cover that exists there, I just don't know if it was really a mood generator. Probably just put everybody to sleep.
We were in our 20s. Did we need a mood generator back then?
True.
Probably not. So maybe we should pull this out again. Things are different when you're in your 50s versus in your early 20s.
That's right. If you're in your early 20s, just sort of, it's Tuesday. A bird chirped, right? So yes, Sensual Classics we may have confused this album as a trigger as opposed to just being in our 20s.
Maybe this should be our Valentine's. We won't know. This will be our first Valentine's Day with no children around. Maybe we should pull out. Maybe we should. Well, we're not going to pull out because we have no place to play it. But maybe we should. I'm sure we could stream it somewhere.
I don't even know how to handle this, but yes. So, and classical music was, all sensual joking aside, which it is true, was a key part of us too, right? Mm-hmm. We listened to a lot of classical music. And I'm visualizing specifically first year when we were at the house on Montfort. I'm sorry, Martell. Too many M's. I have this visual of listening to a lot more classical then when we were married, along with the dating in the Montfort apartment. But there's just something, I think, at dinner we were listening into it, and we even carried this forward. There was a CD that we played for Tanner when he was when you were pregnant, putting the speakers on his. So classical was a big part of us.
Yes, yeah, and that is one thing. We span the genres. We love, 80s rock. Yeah. We love all genres of music, and I love, and I know it makes your heart happy when Tegan, on her way to drill team every morning, she would turn on the classical music because she just liked it because it was quieter. It wasn't her, stuff that she normally listens to. So,
and you talk about it being quieter, and you're right. And I tend to use it more for the mellowing out. Tanner sometimes when he was going to soccer games as part of his hype list, he actually had classical on his hype list as well, along with rock and EDM and everything else. But he would have that. Yes, it did make me happy that they were dialing into that.
And we did. When we were dating, we went to the symphony, and I felt fancy that we were going to the
still
symphony.
Wanna go back.
I know we need to.
Well, that'll be. That's one of the things I want to do. Ooh.
Yeah.
Chill out, Miso. We will get back to going down there and enjoying that as well.
Yeah. So that's our classical. And we didn't even touch on, we used to listen to the WRR radio station on whatever night it was. I can't remember.
It would be at dinner.
But it was
probably about 7 o'clock, which was probably 8
later.
Adventures in classical music. Something like that.
So yeah, we enjoyed that. So this one we listened to this all the time. Dave Matthews Band,
and specifically the Under the Table and Dreaming album.
And
this was on heavy rotation.
Yes, very yes.
Now I don't remember. Did we see Dave Matthews together? I saw him at a club in Austin, but I
saw them in London. Yes, at a neat little theater over in London. Yeah, it was.
So I think we saw him independently. But
okay, so they came out in '91 was their first big album.
Okay.
I just saw that too. And so I would have been in London in 95, summer of 96, I guess. And I remember still, I don't even know how Jennifer and I found it, but we saw that they were playing. And so, we paid and got to go see them in this really cool,
neat,
old London theater. Yeah, it was really, really neat.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah.
So now we've never seen them together.
No.
And I know, people are diehard fans because they still tour. And so,
I remember that I like the albums better than the concert, which is going to be a weird thing to say. I'm not a jam band guy. And when they would go off on jam band, I wasn't stoned. And so I don't think I had the same level of enjoyment as many of the people in the audience did. And the albums, though. And it's still... there's an example of a song that I swipe past, but was one we listened to all the time, Crash Into Me, right? And then there's a little reference in the ticket about ants marching where they associate that with Chris, the overly handsome sales guy, right? And so there's lots to Dave Matthews that ties us back to that time. It is something we listen to an absolute lot.
Yes. I mean, that one I can just visualize in the apartment again. But yeah, that one was on heavy rotation.
The last one that's on this list is one that this is the one that I think of being on play, and we've said this a lot, all the time in the house, and this is Matchbox
and in the
20.
car.
Yeah, in the car. Matchbox 20. Yes. What is the title? Yourself or Someone Like You? And I'd forgotten the title of the album. This is the one. If you go back and listen to the album, it is shocking how many hits were on this album. Yeah. And I realize there's not a coolness here. This is not one that gets you inducted into the used record cool section of the store. The songs on here, though, if you were a college kid in the 90s or a recent post-college kid or like us dating, just about every song and every word on there.
Oh,
and it's
yeah,
not
for
just
sure.
3 a.m. There's
No.
Push, 3
All,
a.m.
yeah.
And I can't list them now because we don't have them. This, to
Yeah.
me, kind of encapsulates what that mid to late 90s rock scene was. This is post-grunge. So you're out of that. You haven't made it quite into what I would call sort of the Timberland kind of era of the aughts. This was just
Yeah.
sort of rock.
It was them. I'd put Hootie and the
Hootie in the same
Blowfoot,
category.
Dave Matthews Band. I'd put in that same. They were all kind of in
I
that
put Counting
same.
Crows in
Counting
there, where it's
Crows.
just
Oh, I loved Counting Crows. Yeah.
rock.
Yeah.
We listen to the Counting Crows a ton. It didn't seem to have any other category, just rock. And I know, again, a lot of folks might even call it sort of generic because it was sort of pop rock, but not the pop rock of Blink-182 later. It was just
Yeah.
guys,
Just, again.
gals, guitars, and
And I don't think there's a bad song on this album. I mean, I'm sure there is, but I don't remember
probably.
skipping through any of them. But yeah, so yeah, Matchbox 20 was huge, and we actually saw them at
Texas Motor Speedway.
Yes,
At one of at Edge Fest.
Edge
a
Fest.
massive
Yeah, when it
concert
was
there.
when it was over there. Then they moved it by our house, and we went a couple of times. So.
I was listening to the Ticket talk about that Edge Fest that was over at the Motor Speedway. I'd forgotten some of the bands that were there. Collective Soul was there. There's another band
Yeah.
that I put in this category. And I don't want to list them all off here because guess what? I don't remember them. It was quite the day,
Yeah,
though.
I know. Yeah, your sister came from Vanderbilt and a couple of her friends, and
We got lost on the way home trying to find Taco Cabana tortillas and queso.
which is so crazy to think now because now we know. I mean, where it is, and actually, the last time we went there was to get
COVID
our
shot.
COVID shot. Yeah.
All right, we're not doing an episode about our COVID
I
shots.
know, but
So that was fun. I enjoyed that. That was the last one, right? That we don't have any more on the list, do we?
I think so. I think that was it.
So that was a lot of fun going through that. And that's, I keep talking about it, the connective tissue of this empty nesting thing. Yeah, we talk about how we want to offer this as tips to others and learn. I think that's something that we are learning and offer as a tip to empty nesters is find what that connective tissue was for you. For us, music was a massive connecting element of us. And talking about it now brings me smiles and brings me the feels and the memories of back then.
And I think that's a good point, is because we've been digging back into some of our dating days to figure out content. It's fun because we can sit there and talk for an hour or two about, oh, and remember when this and that associated with that. And so, yeah, it does. If you're having a rough time reconnecting with your spouse after your kids have left, it's fun. Just think of something from your dating young marrieds before you had your kids and just bring it up, and you'll be amazed at how much conversation it does spark.
And this one it wasn't like we scripted this, right?
No,
This is a
I mean,
conversation we can just have.
Yeah, I mean, last night we were just sitting there, okay, what are we going to talk about this week? So, yeah, we're not real. We all have been watching or listening to our
Don't
podcast.
have a show
so,
calendar planned out for 6 months.
No. So,
No.
but it was fun when we had to start and think about, well, we can't put that one in. Let's focus, narrow it down. So it is, though. It's given us conversation topics, which I think is one of the main reasons that we wanted to start this podcast. So
Agreed.
yeah. But yeah, it's been, a week. The kids have been back for a week. We got back into our routine. We met with our life group on Tuesday night and did our Friday night outing at our favorite bar, which was packed.
Yeah. People quit going to the
Yeah.
out.
Well, the bartender was shocked. He said, I thought everyone was doing dry January. Apparently not.
It was flood January.
So we went to a movie on Saturday and so
Big thumbs up for Iron Claw.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Iron Claw, really good.
Yeah.
Especially being from the Dallas area, and if you are wrestling people, which we're not, but I was. My older brother was big into it, so
it's been good getting back into it.
And we do have a text.
That's right. The
We gotta
kids have gotten back into
so
it.
we've
Tanner has started doing some reffing.
Yes. So yeah, he's reffing high school out there now. And so I just texted him and said, hey, can we call you? And he said,
I will call y'all because high school girls are so mean with crying emojis.
So yeah, he had anyone. Well, you said, yeah, duh. There's a movie coming out again. Coming out again on Friday. That
just it does set the context. He was reffing. It's high school girls. Tanner can put up with anything, so he wasn't actually affected by them. He said,
but high school and especially high school soccer girls,
so mean.
It's a very physical game, and they're way worse than the boys. And I know I can say that because I have friends whose are moms that their girls played, and they would totally agree with me. So
I think everybody, yeah.
he was having to deal with some getting yelled back at him, and
he threw a lot of cards out that game. He said, and he even said there were a lot that he resisted. So, so Tanner's back into it. High school girls are so mean.
Yeah. So there's we'll try to get back into the text of the week because I do enjoy that.
Well, now that they have to be gone, text us, so
yeah. So.
Well, it's been fun, kiddo.
Yeah,
another ride.
Fun. Yeah.
Let's go play. We'll have to decide which one of those we go downstairs and play after we get off the show here.
Yes.
Well, thanks y'all for joining us on another episode of The Loud Quiet, Living the Empty Nest.